Hey, what's up, guys? Okay, so chapter 238's fan translated version is out, and I want to say this was a battle chapter, but if we're being perfectly honest, Klaus, and Ledley got very easily and very one-sidedly decimated by Zeno in this chapter, so you can't really classify it as a battle. And I'm really not even gonna be coy about this. By the end of the chapter, we find Rufus find Yuno's at the very least dying body in the ruins of the Golden Dawn headquarters. Now, obviously, because of the fact that Yuno is among the people who are at the very least dying, that means that none of this is actually going to end up sticking, either next chapter or within the next few chapters. At the very least, Yuno is going to be saved. But if I'm going to hazard a guess, I would say that this is basically what Tobias is going to take this chance, and however he ends up saving Yuno, he's going to use it to save at least the named members of the Golden Dawn that we got introduced to prior to the half-year time skip, which means that Klaus, Hammond, Alec Dora, Siren, David, the dice user, and Ledley, at the very least, will be saved from dying within the next few chapters. And I mean, there's at least two obvious ways that Tabata can go about saving these characters, and I'm sure the one that people have already thought of after reading the chapter is that basically Mimosa can show up and use her new advanced healing magic to save the people who aren't already dead but on the verge of it. And it'd be pretty easy for Tabata to write the reason why she ends up going to the Going Down headquarters and saving them at the last minute. And basically that could be that with Zeno and the Dark Apostles very easily being at least level 0 and Zeno obviously being above that with their magical abilities and the fact that they have obvious animosity against the Golden Dawns, someone just picking up on that level of magic and the fact that that's very dark and very evil, they would have obviously contacted one of the other squads, which would have resulted in someone at the very least contacting Asta and Mimosa about the fact that the Golden Dawn headquarters is under attack. And because obviously Mimosa will be worried about her squad and Asta will be worried about Yuno, it would take no effort for them to basically go to Finral, convince him to transport them to the Golden Dawn headquarters, and it could be possible that Finral would want to go there himself anyway, because as far as we know, he still probably thinks that Langris is the vice captain of the Golden Dawns, so obviously he'd want to go there in order to make sure that his brother was still alive. But anyway, at the very least, the three of them would end up teleporting over there, and upon seeing the carnage and destruction, Mimosa would get right away to healing anyone that she can. And then the second idea that I thought of, and this is actually really the more lazy idea, is the fact that we don't know exactly what magic that Julius still has access to when it came to his original magic. We don't know exactly what his time magic can do at this point now that he's back in his body of a 13-year-old. But Tabata could very easily say that one of the magics that he's still able to access with his newfound abilities, or within the half-year training he gained access to it, is that he's able to at least reverse time in a certain bubble of space. So as long as Joyce can create one of his time bubbles that can fit a few people inside of them, all they would have to say is that these are the only 7 characters who are still breathing, and basically Joyce would just have to basically reverse their injuries to the point where they're either fully healed, or at the very least to the point where they're in a stable condition so that Mimosa could heal them the rest of the way. Okay, so even though the fight was actually very one-sided, I do want to say that it actually did give us some great insight of what Yuno, Klaus, and Ledley could possibly handle when it comes to these opponents. Because, alright, so when they were fighting off against Zeno in the beginning of the fight, I would say he was using about 50% of his power against them. And even though Yuno was still kind of holding his own, obviously Ledley and Klaus were very easily defeated. They couldn't keep up. Now, because of the fact that the two of them were able to work together to defeat an opponent, the Dark Apostle, who was using, I think he said 40% of the demon's power, the fact that the two of them actually had to work together and it was still kind of a hard fight, and again, keep in mind I'm kind of pulling these numbers out of my ass, but still, I would think that because of the fact that it was a hard fight against that one member of the Dark Apostles when he was using 40%, that maybe individually each of those two characters could possibly handle someone who was using, I would say, between 15% to maybe 25, possibly even pushing it to 30% of a demon's power. And then, of course, 40% was too much for them to handle alone, so the two of them had to work together in order to defeat him. Now, when it comes to Yuno, obviously, like I said, he was still kind of holding his own when Zeno was using 50% of his power against him. But really, Yuno was kind of on the losing end of that battle, because even though he was technically holding his own, he had no chance of doing any damage to Zeno because of the fact that his Zephyr sword, even though it was degrading to the bone that Zeno was using to block his attack, Zeno was regenerating that same bone faster than his Zephyr sword could basically degrade it. So Yuno didn't really stand a chance of actually doing any real damage to him. At the best he could do was keep Zeno at a stalemate. But once Zeno decided to get a little bit serious, he upped his power to 55%, just a 5% boost. And that was able to make him easily decimate Yuno in the fight. And dude, even though Yuno didn't go to the Heart Kingdom for that half year to train, Yuno was still no pushover. And the fact that just 5% was enough to basically boost Zeno to the point where he can completely destroy Yuno the way he did, it makes you wonder exactly how strong these characters are. Just how strong are these Dark Triad members who can use up to 80%? Keep in mind, 80%. That's still a 25% difference to what Zeno did to Yuno in this chapter. If 5% had gave him this level of a boost, what would the extra 25% do? What would going up to 80 exactly do? And this has to make us question exactly how much stronger is Asta to Yuno now compared to what they were prior to the time skip. Because before the time skip, they were obviously at a very even level when it came to power levels. Now, obviously, Asta went over to the Heart Kingdom and trained for this half year, which means he's probably that much stronger than Yuno. But we don't know where the strength levels correlate now. We don't know exactly how much stronger Asta is to Yuno, and what the difference is between Asta's strength now and what it is versus Zeno and the other Dark Triad members. It could very well be that Asta, even though he might be at this point leagues ahead of what Yuno's strength is, it could still not measure up to the full 80% of power that the Dark Triad members can pull out from the demon. It could be that he only measured up to possibly maybe 60%, or maybe he could only do up to the 55% that we see Zeno use in this chapter. We don't really have any way of quantifying the power levels of Asta at this point, but what we can obviously say is that Yuno is only about at his current point, given the same power level that he had prior to the half-year time skip when he fought against the last demon, he's only able to defeat someone who's able to use at the very most 50% of the demon's power. And you know what, having this revealed kind of brings up two thoughts in my head. First off, it's kind of sad to see the character who was very obviously the main character's rival fall this far behind to the main character. And again, we don't really know if he actually is behind Asta at this point. We don't exactly know what the difference is between the two characters, so it could be just a very minimal difference. But even so, even if it only is a difference of Asta being able to be on par with Zeno's 55%, that's still obviously a big difference between two characters. And it's such a sad thing to see Yuno, Asta's rival, fall so far behind him when it comes to the power levels at this point. And the second question is, it makes me wonder exactly how strong William is at this point. And we really won't get a real clear answer to that, at least based off of this chapter, because we don't know exactly how much power Zeno had to use in order to defeat William the way he did. It could be, at the very least, that he was using the same 50% that he used against Yuno, Klaus, and Ledley in the beginning of the chapter. But it could very well be that Zeno actually had to be pushed to the point where he used maybe more than that, maybe 60%, maybe he used only the 55% that we saw him use against Yuno. We didn't get to see their fight, so we don't know exactly how much of a difference there is between William and Zeno. And if we try to make a guess, we could only really guess that Zeno was using the same 50% that he used against them, which would mean that at this point William is weaker than Yuno was prior to the time skip. Now, putting power levels aside for a second, two very interesting things do kind of happen when Zeno decides to go to 55%. And that's basically, the first thing I want to talk about is that he gets a form that's kind of like Asta's dark form. You know how when Asta activates his dark form, he grows one black horn, one black wing, and his arm turns into like a black claw type of thing? Well, Zeno doesn't get that, but he does get the black horn and black wing. And in addition to that, he does grow one white horn on the other side. Now, seeing the fact that Zeno has this transformation makes me think that each of the Dark Triad members have a similar transformation, similar to the one that Asta can do in his dark form. And then the other thing is that when Zeno activates 55% of his power, for a brief moment, we see that him and Yuno are trapped in some kind of like cube thing, and I'm sure this is basically just like a visual cue. It's not actually them being trapped inside the cube. But in that same panel, we see the silhouette of a demon holding the two of them in that cube in one of his hands. And when it comes to this scene, basically seeing the silhouette of the demon, I've seen a lot of people commenting on the fact that this demon doesn't have the same look that we've seen for Megikuo in the previous chapters. And this could be one of two things. It could be either A, since we haven't seen officially what the demon looks like, since we haven't officially seen what Megikuo looks like in person, Tabata could just be taking a chance to basically change up the design a little bit. Because, I mean, we've seen this happen before. There's been plenty of other series, like One Piece is a prime example. We'll get silhouettes of characters for chapters upon chapters, and then when we actually get the official characters look, they look nothing like the silhouette of the character that we've been seeing for those previous chapters. It could be the same thing here, where basically Tabata, since he doesn't fully have down exactly what he wants to make it cool to look like, he's just changing up the silhouette as he comes up with new ideas. Or it could very possibly be, and this is what I've seen a lot of people commenting on, the fact that maybe Megikulo isn't contracted to all to read the Dark Triads. Maybe only one member, possibly the leader of the Dark Triad, is actually contracted to Megikulo, and each of the other two are contracted to a different demon, and possibly the same thing for the Dark Apostles and all the other soldiers who also can use demonic powers. Maybe every single person has their own demon they're contracted to. And I actually really like this idea that people are putting forward, that maybe each member of the Dark Triad and everyone who can actually use a demonic power is contracted to a different demon instead of everyone gaining power from Megikulo. Because this kind of leads to a theory that I've actually came up with after reading this chapter and seeing that idea about Asta's origins. So basically my theory of Asta's origins kind of banks off the idea that Asta might be from the Space Kingdom just like Yuno, because of the fact that the two of them were found not only on the same day, but in very similar baskets to each other. And basically my idea expanding on that is that maybe just like how in Naruto, when it came to Naruto's parents, they sealed Kurama inside of him on the day he was born and then died. Maybe something similar happened with Asta, where he actually was from the Space Kingdom. Unlike Yuno, he was probably his family was probably commoners, or it could be that he actually was related to members of the Dark Triad. But anyway, regardless of who his parents were, they most likely practiced the demonic arts or worship demons, and they used Asta in order to make a contract with the anti-magic demon. And then obviously something must have happened to his parents, which led to them having to take him to Hage Village in order to basically keep him safe. Maybe the Dark Triad found out about their practices and actually decided to kill them off. And just like how Rufus' dad was able to get Yuno to safety, maybe a member of the family like Asta's mom or someone was able to take Asta to Hage Village and get him to safety just in time so that he wouldn't die just like the rest of their family. I know my idea is kind of a stretch, and I'm not going to claim I'm the only one who thought of it, but when you think about the fact that maybe each member of the Dark Triad and possibly the Dark Apostles and anyone else in their army in the Space Kingdom who's contracted or uses demonic powers is contracted to someone else besides Megikulo, the theory actually does hold some credit then. Anyway guys, that's pretty much all that happened in the chapter. It's pretty much it for the video. I'm excited to read the official translated version on Sunday to see if there's any differences in the dialogue. Like maybe that we end up finding out that Zeno didn't actually use 55% against maybe use more than that in order to defeat him. I'm excited to see that, and I'm really excited to see what happens next week. But that's it for the video guys. Thanks for watching. I hope you enjoyed. If you did, drop me a like, subscribe to the channel. I greatly appreciate it. Comment down below with thoughts and theories, and I'll catch you guys next week. Peace.